in Terry fashion, I'm like, yes, Dad. He's like, you gotta live, baby. You gotta live. Hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of Weederlight. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. Alright friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. You know me. Before I always hit record, I always have this like epiphany moment, ADHD genius, and go off. But I was here laughing, and of course it took me 5 hours to get my ass into the seat to record, and I was like, all right, I gotta practice what we preach here. Gotta do what we gotta do, So I was like listening to my music and and having my beautiful limoncello club soda, and I'm readjusting my hair right now, like doing, have my essential oils, doing what I gotta do. I hope you heard my little hair tousle, my little Ariana Grande Galinda hair tousle. If you know, you know, and you probably do know. But it's so funny that I was thinking of the cosmic joke that it takes work and it takes consciousness to feel good. And often I don't think it's funny. Like often I could feel victimized by it, and I could feel extremely frustrated by it. And, like, what the hell? Like, why is this not easier? Or why am I making it harder? That's kind of, that's my flavor sometimes. Like, why am I putting, and there's reasons, but like, why am I putting these roadblocks in front of feeling good? And so often I don't think it's funny at all. But today, as I was taking 12 years to sit down to record this thing, I kind of got the humor of it, like the cosmic joke. And don't worry, in 5 hours, I probably won't find it funny again. But like the like, wow, yeah, like LOL, like, yeah, it does take effort, and concentration and intention to feel good, which is wild. And I don't want to mix that with a narrative that it's going to be hard and it's going to be blood, sweat, and tears. No, it takes intention. It takes consciousness. For most people, I'll say, right? For most people, because usually it's more available for us to go to the negative or to scarcity or to fear. And again, that's not to bypass that. That's an appropriate vibe sometimes. But yeah, it takes work is the cliff notes. I can go on a nuanced tangent as we do, but it takes work and it takes consciousness, which I think frustrates a lot of us. Like, this is my birthright. It's like, yes, it is our birthright, and it takes intention. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I was laughing, like I said, like doing these micro, and the cool thing is, and we will talk about this, like they are micro adjustments. I joked, yes, it took me 12 years to sit down to record this podcast, but when I actually got to it, right, like I was distracting myself. Like I'm like, well, maybe, I'll eat some popcorn and watch The Real Housewives. It's pleasure after all. It's feeling good after all. But when I really got to the nuts and bolts of it, to the actually grounding and feeling good, it took a moment. So that's what's so cool about this work is it can be available. It can be accessible. It does take consciousness and work to find it, and for it to be a priority, honestly, right? And for it to be normalized within our world, right? Or our reality, that it's even a thing to fight for. So what I mean by that is if we are, and there's no shade, no tea, no shade, no pink lemonade. But if we're in a community, or if we don't have the luxury, which most of us don't, or the privilege, that we're in a community, or we're, we read book, whatever it is, right? We're in the energetic field, if you will. I'm getting very woo-woo today, of folks that fight for their aliveness and living a really rich life. Of course it feels isolating. If you're the one doing it, in your world, whether it's your physical world or the digital world, or you know what I mean? Like it could be, and it could feel like an isolating journey. And that's why we're here, right? That's why I'm here. That's why I think it's important, right? A lot of my work, yes, I do work with groups. I work, which is so cool, with corporate. I work, in group settings, and I mostly work one-on-one. But for me, part of, besides, getting myself out there, part of why I love doing the podcast and creating content is for people to feel seen. You know what I mean? And so, yes, it's inspirational. Yes, like, cool. Like, but to feel like, oh my God, like I'm seen and there's someone with me running towards the same desire and running towards the same goal. So I went on a little bit, shock. Are we surprised? But I went on a little bit tangent of that, but the importance of not only us fighting for a magical life, but within our control. Like I said, maybe it's, free resources like the podcast or books or community, online or otherwise, or however we can support ourselves. This should be the thing. However we can support ourselves to have the magical life. Does that make sense? Again, sidebar, I didn't think I'd go here, but for me, I have been fighting for my joy and my pleasure and my radiance every day for a long time. Fighting. But for me, the piece that has been crucial is how lucky am I that, and I really make it a conscious effort, right, to put in my world folks that are aligned with those values. Try to even though I joke about the housewives, and that's something I'm not going to give up. Like I consciously do try to stock and stack up my podcasts and my books, just to align. I do try to, yes, on my Instagram feed, I may have some, some tea, some pop culture tea, because it's fun and I love it and it's enjoyable. But I also make sure I have my, other witchy people that make me feel inspired. So I think you get what I'm saying. It's a full conversation. And the beauty is we can do it on our own. It is accessible. It is a right for all of us. And it's very magical when we are, held by others, when others inspire us, when others hold us and advocate for us. I think you get the gist. I don't know why I went on that. But what I'm getting at is it's a thing. Like this is tangent and all. It's funny because we all want it. And I always, when I work with people, they're like, I want to feel good. Like, of course I want to feel good. And then there's, we have stuff around it, right? Like there could be stories, there could be conditioning, there could be trauma, there could be fear, da-da-da. We all have textures and tones of why, But it's funny because we're like, I want it, why? And there often can be some things for us to unpack of, I talk about this with desires all the time. Like pretend a desire is a financial desire of, let's say you want to make blank a month, fill in the blank, whatever works for you. Hell yeah, right? Like it's on our vision board. It's like so easy. Like I want that a month. Duh, that would be hot. And it's like, all right, like push comes to shove. And again, I'm not saying 100% law of attraction, like go with me. We're nuance here, right? Like there's situations, there's circumstances, go with me, right? Nuance, as we do. Caveat. But in the world of which we can control, right? Often it's like, okay, I want to make blank per month. But then when we really look, it's like, I'm fucking scared to hold that a month. Back in the day, I was really reckless with money. If I have more money, that means this. I'm going to be isolated by my family, right? So it's like, I'm using the money example because that's a pretty clean, crystal clean one for a lot of us. But especially with feeling good, right? Like I want to feel good. I want to feel joy. I want to feel pleasure. And then we have these stories, we have these experiences that it's scary, or, I felt good once and and then it was like the rug got pulled out from underneath me. And again, we're not talking like toxic, like, yeah, like all the time, like the life fucking happens. And that's the beauty for me, and from my education and the little work that I was in Tantra. And, that's something I don't always speak about because it's not my expertise. It's not my, you know what I mean? Like that's, again, I was a student. But it does influence my work, of course. But something that I love from my Tantra learnings was, for me, and this is the Erica interpretation, LOL, but was aliveness. Like I love that. I love, for me, just like, I always have the word flash, like alive, alive, alive. Like that's for me, like aliveness, being alive. And aliveness is being dripped in honey pleasure. And aliveness is having your heart broken. And aliveness is feeling numb sometimes. And aliveness is fill in the blank. And I know I say this all the time in the podcast and in general, but I'm like, when I go, I have the Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. Da, 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 da. Regrets. I've had a few. Sing with me. Oh wow, the ADHD is so kicking today. I really want to tell you a story, but I'll keep it back on track. Okay, I'll tell you really quick. You flirted with me. You got it out. You got it out of me really quick. So I think you probably could tell I'm from the East Coast, in America, New York, New Jersey, and so I sing Frank Sinatra. Like, of course you know. But there's a store, and if you're from New York, New Jersey, you know there's a store. Uncle Giuseppe's. How you doing? Uncle Giuseppe's, or as my parents would say, we're going to Giuseppe's, of course. And Uncle Giuseppe's is a gorgeous Italian grocery store. But usually on Sundays, they have a Frank Sinatra impersonator singing to you, "I did it my way," as you're getting your fresh mozzarella. Like, can we talk? Can we discuss? Like, I know that has nothing fucking to do with this podcast, but it has everything to do with this podcast because I did it my way. I just want to enjoy Frank Sinatra while I get mozzarella down the aisle. You know what I mean? But so I just had to share that. That's like an Erica, not a caveat. It's an Ericaism that you need to know. But I did it my way. And when I die, I want to, and my mom and I talked about this. She's like, when I die, you're going to play that song. I'm like, all right. And I respect it because I get it. I'm like, hell to the yeah. And that's, for me, aliveness. Did you like my Uncle Giuseppe's tangent? Can you also believe that? Like, maybe you're like, that doesn't shock you. Maybe you're like, yeah, of course I go to my grocery store. I mean, now we are in the time of like bougie grocery stores, like Erewhon, like we're in this like, yes. But like, when you think about it, it's wild. Like, there's a man singing Frank Sinatra, and it's like, it's the most, it makes me feel sad that I don't live there anymore, because I'm like, that is being alive, But anyway, I did it my way. Being alive for me is listening to Frank Sinatra, no joke, eating the most fresh mozzarella you could ever have, and also feeling broken, and also right? So for me, the aliveness is all the shades and textures and tones. And that's why I'm obsessed with this work. I said that before. That's why I'm obsessed with making this work accessible, because we deserve that. Yeah. So I think that's important to bring up as we sashay into the topic at large. And for me, it's the being alive. It's the feeling good in my body. So we're going to get personal, talking about our parents, talking about being alive. Ooh. Yelena and I encourage you, if this is something, if aliveness is a topic that is interesting to you, which I think for me, I'm fucking obsessed with this topic, go back to the episodes with Yelena, because it's all actually about death and how death teaches us aliveness. Whew. And that's how we're here today. I am going to actually give a whole episode. I don't think I'm ready just yet. I need a few more days. Because it's going to be teary, and that's okay. But this episode is inspired. So we're going to start with this episode is inspired by, and then the next one the next episode that we're going to do, potentially, I think so, is the death doula. All about death and shedding and letting go, and what that looks like, right? It could be quite literally a passing of a loved one, a shedding, a letting go, a change, but grief is going to be the next one. And I hate this for me. And I'm very fucking proud of myself, I brag, that I had the privilege, because I do think it's a privilege, and I prayed on this, like, please let me be there, that I got the privilege of being a death doula, if you will, for my father. My bestie. And I will cry at you next episode about that tremendous man. But I will say that was this very fucking spiritual experience, as you can imagine. And one that has forever changed me. Being with someone so close and doing that journey. Wow. I joked because, of course, that's what we do. I use my humor, but to cope, I said, I don't need to go on a fucking retreat. I don't need to go on a yoga retreat. I don't need to do ayahuasca for like 5 years. Like, I'm good. I'm good. Listen, if I want to go on a spiritual retreat, God bless, but like, I'm good. I'm good for a while. Like, I've seen some shit. And I've seen some shit, and it was shocking and wild and also beautiful and such a privilege and a blessing. And I'm very grateful because that experience, for so many reasons, also, and I'll talk about this next time, but I think it's important to mention here, my dad was obsessed. He was obsessed with aliveness. And he would always say to me every time, before I'd leave, because of course, New York, New Jersey, I told you Giuseppe's, so, this is a sidebar, and I'll talk about this next time, but with Dad, I feel I feel blessed, and I say this, and I won't get too lost in the sauce in the story, but he had a very successful business, and he was well known in his community, and it's it's not lost on me, the privilege that I have, that I get to grieve one of the most important people in my life in a very public way. Not, it's not like in a public way. What beauty, right? That like for the most part it's private, but like people get to share their stories, and they're writing articles in his work, like. How cool is that? And I said to someone that's writing an article about him, like the privilege isn't lost on me. I know this is not an experience everyone gets to have, and I'm very grateful. But all these people that his close friends have said just beautiful things. But people that that he touched, his energy that he touched, more worldwide, or more on the America standpoint. That's not the East Coast. They're like. Well, and I didn't know, like, I don't think about it because it's my dad, you know what I mean? And like, I know my mom is, my mom quite literally is Carmela Soprano. Like, hospice was like, we call your house the Carmela Soprano household. I'm like, LOL, like, but when you're close to it, you don't think about it. But everyone that, was in, sorry, I just blew my nose at you because I'm crying, of course. But in Dad's circle that was outside of the East Coast was like, well, Terry. He's a New Yorker. Like he got that gruff, funny. I'm like, really? So, yeah. So I laugh about that. So as much as he was a teddy bear and a pure, and we'll talk about him next time. Of course, I'll have to pay a little homage, when we talk about grief. But he was this internal hippie, right? Like he was this, like, we called him the naughty Buddha, because he had this spirit of a Buddha. The eternal hippie. He really valued peace and love and understanding. He made everyone feel warm and welcome, but he had a Weeder Light splash to it, right? Like he had the naughtiness, the mischievousness, the funny, the whatever. But I always forget he had the New York layer to it. Like, because again, it's so close to me that I'm like, what? But people are like, so go with me on this. Again, I didn't, whatever. But in Terry fashion, I'm like, yes, Dad. He's like, you gotta live, baby. You gotta live. He didn't. His accent isn't as strong. Okay, my mom is everything you imagine. She's friend dresser, but Terry would always say, and this is, he would joke about everything. He was a prankster. He was funny to the final day, final minutes. He was a tease and a half, and just funny as fuck. Like, just like, you're like, oh, like funny as fuck. And something he was very serious about was living. I went on a little tangent with you, but how can I not when I talk about Terry, my baby doll? But he'd always say, for Erica, of course. How could it not be? Eh? You gotta live, baby. You gotta live. And he was upset. He's like, tomorrow is not guaranteed, honey. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. You gotta live. And we always, I was blessed enough I was fortunate enough to travel with my family and my parents. And my mom's like, all right, we're getting crazy. Like, this is getting nuts. And he's like, Noah, you can't take it with you. I gotta enjoy. And so he was YOLO as a person. He was a YOLO embodied before YOLO was a thing, but not in a reckless, like, wow way, but like he valued life. This is someone that valued living. And we talked, about the hard stuff. And he's like, look, I'm grateful for the good. And that was a person that fought for the good and looked for the good, even in the most devastating circumstances. And to me, that is just such iconic behavior, right? Like sitting in the shit and being like, this is shit. And not bypassing, but finding the holiness, finding the beauty. And because of that experience, again, I'm going to talk about this more next time about like being a death doula for ourselves, right? Whether it is death, whether it's grief, whatever. But if something in this conversation, definitely check out the Elena podcast because it talks a lot about this, that when we are faced with death, life looks different. And I again, blessings on blessings on blessings, I say, through this experience, I'm blessed that my dad was obsessed with telling me that. Because often when someone passes, they say they want you to live. They want, like, and it's like, okay, hold on. Like, there's a lot to unpack here. And I'm very grateful that he really valued, again, not from a bypassy place, but he valued being alive. And he was the first one to talk, like, I know my mom says, Frank Sinatra, she did it her way, which she did. She is. But Terry, he did it his way too. He laughed, he cried, like he lived, baby. And that's my dream for all of us. And living, right, is, like I said, being numb sometimes, being in grief, allowing myself to grieve, allowing myself to being pissed, like this is fucked, like all of the things. And then comes pleasure. And here's the thing with my personal journey, and I actually did an episode on this probably a few years ago. I think it was called Thaw Me Out Like a Chicken, but as I'm doing my crock-pot chicken right now. But it was about thawing and de-thawing and all of that. And this experience with Dad was beautiful. Like I said, it was traumatic. It was beautiful. It was spiritual. It was deep. It was alive. It was beyond words, and I'm not even going to try to touch it today. But pre that, because he was sick for a bit of time, and again, that comes with blessings and that comes with some stuff. For me personally, how I internalized it was it put me in a freeze. Because I was fucking scared shitless. Like, is today gonna be the day? Is he okay? Like, just being, like, not breathing for 2 years or a year and a half. However, I think it was more of a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah. But during that time, not being able to breathe, and being in a total freeze. I said to my husband the other day, we were very lucky. It was so fucking cool. We went to Japan and Taiwan for our honeymoon, and it was just fabulous. I mean, dream. What a dream. And I said, there's so many moments that I, obviously took in and it was a, once in a lifetime, like just wow. And also I'm like, I was like on autopilot because I was like, holy shit, I'm at fucking Mount Fuji. And then I'm also like, is Dad okay? Like I'm in freeze. And like holding both of those things, like I'm in freeze and I'm actively trying to get out of freeze. Right. So for me, how it manifested, it manifested in different ways, right? It's not just one shade, mostly freeze. And then I actually caught myself, which is kind of cool when you do the work, you catch yourself doing things. But the days of his Shiva and funeral, I noticed I was in flight. see ya. Like, I was running for the hills. Like, I quite literally was like, bye. Like, I was like, oh, she's off. And that, that's me too. I have a part, like, I don't really drink anymore, but when I used to partake in cocktails, I'd be gone. They'd be like, she's gone. Like, I don't know. It's something in my body where they're like, where the fuck did you go? I'm like, don't know. I'm gone. She's gone. She's gone. And during his services, that's what kicked up. I was like, see ya. Like, and everyone's like, where the fuck did she go? I was like, bye. Where right through his illness, I was just in total freeze. And then, I worked through all of the different guys there. But why I say that is I've been slowly holding myself out of freeze, and I bring that up also for us to, like, for you to investigate, like, where do I sit when tragedy occurs? Where do I sit in regular life? Like, am I more of a flight? Am I more of a freeze? Am I more of a fawn? Like, am I more of a fight? Like, where do I go? I think it's just interesting. We don't have to diagnose, doesn't mean anything, but I think it's just interesting data to learn and collect about ourselves. So for me, right, like, I was doing all of it. I was live, laugh, loving with all of them and mingling with all of them. But freeze, like I said in that de-thawing episode, freeze was the main dog. And so for me, over time, my work was in a safe way, in a not aggressive way. How the fuck do I get out of freeze? And in a very gentle way. Right now, like, I'm gonna be honest, because I do the work of pleasure and embodiment. There is, like, of course, a little toxic part where it's like, come into pleasure. It's like, and my body's like, LOL, like, are you crazy, lady? Like, get out of here. So for me, it's been a very interesting journey of holding myself. I'll leave it at that. You know what I mean? Like, holding myself with feeling good and with pleasure. And so, I want to note that for me, I've had different tones, textures of pleasure over the years. And isn't it fun to mix and mingle, right? Like, sensuality versus like different archetypes or tones of texture of pleasure. And we're in a different game. Like, it's not even tones and textures. It's how I'm holding it is completely different, right? So it's not even, it is a different tone, but it's how I'm holding myself. And for me, what I came to find was, I was like, okay, when I did my embodiment practices, slowly, like, that was a slow burn in, and I'm proud of myself for that. What I got was, okay, I don't know if we're going to be jumping to titty tassel pleasure right now. And that's okay. Like, that's not really the season and cycle for titty tassel. It might, here and there, shake, 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 shake. Like, that might be the vibe, but, like, we just need to be held. And I lied. The real thing that I needed was, it might not be shake, 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 but the real thing that came up when I did my embodiment practices was, hey, this is like my body, soul speaking to me. Like, hey, can we just, like, consciously create space to feel good every day? And it's not bypassy. It's not weird. It's not like genuinely. And then can we add to it a little bit more? Like, can we notice how we're feeling? And can we add to that? And I was like, okay, I could do that. And so over time, that's been my assignment, right? So it's like, whether it's in a self-pleasure or in a pleasure practice, instead of like, I'm going to rush through this, like, okay, really feeling my nails in my hair, or my skin to my skin, or, we actually were in Disney the other weekend, and again, also noticing too, like, where am I, where are we using pleasure as an escape, right? So that's been a very interesting journey too. Like, are we using pleasure, like, using and holding it and being within a relationship with it in a healthy way? So not escaping, and that's okay sometimes. Consciously knowing, okay, I'm going to do this thing, like in a healthy container. But we were at Disney, we were seeing a really beautiful Christmas symphony concert, and I was like, okay, because you're running around, and it's that I have to be mindful of. Like, you're walking thousands of steps, like, whatever, 20,000 steps a day. I don't even know. Like, you're walking miles and miles and miles a day. And it's like, for me, for my ADHD brain, I'm like, oh, like, overstimulated. Like, I'm like, ooh, delicious snack. Ooh, a ride. Like, like senses overload, honestly. And so we finally sat down for this concert, and I was like, oh shit, like here I am. Like I forgot, like, like I forgot, like I'm a human, like here I am. And so I was like, okay, Erica, like to the best of your ability, you're going to enjoy this concert. Like let's play with it, that. And I was like, I'm so ungrounded, and my first steps were like, okay, like with gentleness, like it's okay. So let me just feel my feet on the concrete. Like, let me just start with that. Okay. And then it was like, of course, that little kinky voice was like, enjoy the music. You know what I mean? It's like, all right. Pleasure fairy, like enjoy not even the pleasure fairy. It's like the mean, the shadowy side of the pleasure fairy. Like you better have pleasure. And it was too much, like, because I think I was in a state of like running, like that was kind of me, in flight. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, blah, 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 like kind of actively dissociating, that it took me a minute. And I was like, you know what? Like I can't take in all of this pleasure right now. It's a little overwhelming to my system to be looking, even though it loves it. It's too much for me to take in, the story, the beautiful costumes, the beautiful trees and the decorations, and like it's too much. I can't even like really hear the different like instruments in the band because it's just too much. And so like I tried to close my eyes, or like, fluttered them closed or whatever, looked down at the floor, and I was like, my goal is just to listen to the different, instruments, the different notes. And I was like, okay, that's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. And I heard the horns, then I heard the this, and I was like, oh my God, beautiful. Whoa. Can I feel that in my body? Like, can I feel that? And I was like, fuck yeah. Whoa, that soprano, she hit that note. Yo, that was so good. Yummy, 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 yummy. Like that was delicious. Okay, cool. Can I layer this? Do I want to layer this? Sometimes the answer is no. Yes. Okay, it's a little bit of a chilly night. I feel the breeze on my cheek. Ooh, that feels really good. What's the texture? I can feel that in my body. Whoa, I can now hold feeling the breeze on my cheek while also hearing the horns and her hit that gorgeous soprano note. Fab. How you doing, E? Can you open your eyes? I'm gonna try. Okay, I'm not gonna take it all in. I'm just gonna look at the tree and the beautiful ornaments. Oh, look, it's more of a gold. Da, da, da. Do you get what I'm saying? So like I have to, and have to stack sometimes. Sometimes I can go full in, and we can go full summer and titty tassel, like we said, like shake, shake, shake. And sometimes it's like, yo, like my body is there's still moments of being in freeze, or being in it, just in a response. I don't even want, it's just being in a response. And so the gentleness of holding ourselves, because for me, like I said, what I always say to my clients is don't use any of our, like, to the best of our ability, right? Because these are all tools, they're technology, they're fabulous, they're life-changing. But we have to notice when we use the tools as weapons against ourselves. And for a while, I struggled, I was using the weapons against myself, essentially, right? It was like, wow, I'm grieving. Wow, I'm devastated. Wow, I'm scared. Wow, I'm this. Pleasure! It was like, what? Like, yo, like, what are you talking about? Like, it was, like I said before, it was too much. And I used pleasure as a weapon against myself. And so for me, what I used to do with pleasure, how I used to get in, we talk about this all the time, right? Pleasure is a relationship. How I used to get into pleasure, how I used to get there, and the journey, and the ba-ding, the arrival, the destination is much different than now. And no one is better or worse, but I can say I'm very grateful and I'm proud of myself that I'm sticking it out with this relationship, right? Like it's like a partnership where it's like, whoa, this is hard. This is different. But like, okay, we used to enter these 3 ways. We got to be creative, or we're entering now from the left or the right, where we never did before. And that's cool. And that's not wrong or bad. I'm grateful for that. And I think I'm proud of myself for, and I'm proud of my clients that go there, that like allow themselves to have a really rich relationship with pleasure and joy and deep embodiment. That it's not just like, then I do this to this to this and it equals this. Not that that's wrong or bad, but that we really let it be a relationship that we're willing to fight for. Because it's hard. It's hard. So like I said, that stacking And why I share that story is I think it's important, like where are you in your journey right now? Is pleasure something that you're aching for? Is it not? Is it more joy? Is it more peace? And then how are you allowing it in? Are you allowing it in? It's okay if you're not, but like, I just am curious, like, let's start with this. Like, are you allowing pleasure and goodness in? Right? Because like I said, when I was doing my embodiment practices, like, just let goodness in, like, just hold goodness. Right. And so I had that experience with the concert, and it was like, okay, like, this is a little much, and it was like, all right, I'm going to actively, consciously dissociate now. Like, we're going on rides. Like, I'm gonna pop out for a second, and then I'm gonna pop back in. And not like I'm really popping out, but like, I can't like really I can't hold all of the goodness right this moment. And that's why we talk about often titration, right? Like, we don't go 0 to 100 because it could totally blow us out. We do it in bits. We hold, and then we go back. And then we hold, and you stack, right? It's the stacking, it's the compounding idea that we compound this pleasure, we compound this joy, we make it safe, we make it available in our body. We don't go 0 to 60. And so for me, that's been my assignment, right? Like, the last few beats is like, how do I feel while also holding grief and change and when appropriate, how do I hold goodness? Because sometimes pleasure still has a little bit of an edge for me. So how do I hold goodness in my body? And like I said, the concert example, or, I'm going to just sit here for one song and really be with myself. I'm going to really hold that goodness. Okay, I'm going to go back. You know what I mean? Like, how do I consciously create goodness? Especially coming from a trauma, if you will. But, in other circumstances in my life, I didn't have to work as hard, like, it was just like, I'm going to have this pleasure. Great. And now I have to, in this, season, I have to hold it a little different. And what a great thing that is. So I say this to bring up with you, like, are you allowing the pleasure in? Do you want to? What does it look like? Are you in a season where it's like, they're flying right through the door? Like, it's easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl. Or is it like, okay, it's kind of like you right now, Erica. Like, I kind of got to hold it piece by piece, inch by inch. So I'm curious where you're at with that, and where you want to be, and how you want to hold yourself through the pleasure journey. Often folks in my community, and I think it's actually a beautiful way to say it, is like microdose. Like, and for me, it's like I'm microdosing goodness. And for me, goodness right now in this season is pleasure, joy, peace. And I'm microdosing that, right? Because there's some moments where it's just absolute devastation. And then it's like, whoa. And then I feel total peace in my body. And I'm actively trying to curate goodness. So that goodness, peace, joy, pleasure. And I'm microdosing it, right? Like, taking like a little bit, great. A little bit, great. A little bit, So I'm curious for you, what road of goodness do you want to open to? Or are you like, I've been soaked in the pleasure. Like, I've been soaked in the peace. I've been soaked in the pleasure. In a healthy way, I want to open the door a little bit more to my grief. Or, like, I'm curious if it was, a system, what needs to be plugged up seems a little aggressive, but you get what I mean? Like, what needs to be, like, what doors need to be open and what doors can be shut a little bit more, right? Like, we're getting at what's the imbalance, if there is any, and what's the desire? Like, I desire more, like I said, joy, peace, pleasure. Or maybe like, no, I have a ton of that. I want, to process more of the, the stuck stuff. I want to go into my fear. So I'm just curious. I just want to take like a little pulse and take a inventory, take stock of like where, if there's any imbalances, and what balance you desire. Not even balance, but like what system of flow do you desire? So yeah, I told you that for a while, the pleasure thing felt like a weapon against myself. So I use different pathways, right? Like joy and peace. And, peace has actually been a really profound one for me. Peace was a big gateway drug back into pleasure for me, because pleasure just felt fucking crazy. But peace was more accessible, especially, with the situation with my dad. It was a very, like I said, very spiritual experience. And there was a lot of spirituality in there, a lot of like open heart energy, peace, like that type of vibe. And so that was very accessible. Or more accessible. Pleasure felt like I said, felt absolutely cray cray. Like, no way. And so for me, I was prioritizing my peace. Like, I changed my phone background, like prioritize your peace. Like that became like a thing. And so yoga has always been a part of my life. And I actually, a lot of people don't know, but I'm certified yoga teacher, prenatal, regular yoga teacher, but in addition to prenatal yin restorative. And I really leaned, and I've been leaning on that practice because it's giving me so much peace and it's opening the door to pleasure. Same with meditation. Like I am finding my way, like peace was a softer place for me to land. And then, like I said, when I found that peace within my body, peace within myself, it was like, hey, can we look at pleasure? No problem. Or like, yes, like it was a soft place to land while I deconstructed my shit around pleasure over the last trying times. And joy, I bring this up too, because I remember talking with my, one of my teachers, and the differences between, and I bring this up for us to evaluate, like, what are you really craving right now? And I know I brought this up earlier, but like joy can be a different texture than pleasure and peace. And it's funny because when my dad was sick, pleasure again felt very unavailable. And there was moments and I was working towards it, I was doing the things, and it was more, like I said, the peace vibes and some joy here and there. And I was very resistant towards the pleasure. And now pleasure feels a little bit more safe because it's like a warm hug. And I need a warm hug right now. You know what I mean? Where joy is still there, but that's not as much as the tone. Does that make sense? Like there's moments of joy, and to be honest, to get woo-woo, when I'm in joy, I feel my dad the most because he was just the freaking most joyous, happiest person. So when I'm in my cackle, when I'm in my cackle spirit, when I'm in my joy, when I'm in my elation, I feel my dad. But that I love that flavor. It's not as often right now. It's there, right? And I feel very lucky it's there a good amount of time. But the thing that I'm really craving is the peace. Actually, I lied. I do crave the cackle too. Who doesn't crave a cackle? But why I share that is because it changes. It sifts and sort through time. And again, at one time, it was peace. Now I'm still wanting peace. Who doesn't? And needing peace. But pleasure and peace are becoming interchangeable. Different, but they're like when I'm at peace, when I do the yoga class, right? I can get into pleasure easily. Or when I have the accessibility to pleasure, I'm like, oh my God, I feel at peace. Like I really feel at peace. So those have become very beautiful. So I'm curious, what's the tone that you're craving? What are you desiring? What are you needing? And again, like we said before, how do we open the door? Is it going to be a softer, slower burn? Is it fly right open? I'm curious what that looks like for you. I want to bring this up because I think this is important. I'm sure, if you're still here, there's some things in my story that aligned with you. And a lot of folks recently I'm talking to, they're like, I just feel like, whatever circumstance, like I feel like I lost my sparkle. And for me, why I love this work is bringing back our sparkle, but not in again, I always say this, not in a toxic way, not in a bypassy way, but like, yeah, like for me, bringing back the sparkle is bringing back the aliveness, giving space. And you know what? With my dad's journey, it was because of this work. Ooh, that's powerful. It was because of this work that I could show up in ways that I'm so proud of myself. It's not about being proud of myself, but we'll just add that. But I could show up and look one of the toughest situations in the face with trust, with confidence, with a strong belief system because of this work. And I don't know, maybe I would have been able to before, maybe, it doesn't matter, but I did now, and I did it well equipped, right? So I knew how to hold myself during it. I needed, and I will still need, a lot of aftercare, right? And I can give that to myself because of this work. And I mean, damn, so whether it's getting our sparkle back, whether it's facing huge trials and tribulations. Oh my God. We're facing those tribulations. Um, Getting the sparkle back for me is fighting for the aliveness. And I think I want to end with this. I kind of went all over the place. What else is new? But I think what's so beautiful about this work, and I said it before and I am going to say it again, is call it pleasure. I lied. Fuck calling it pleasure. Feeling good, right? Feeling good. An umbrella, peace, joy, love, pleasure, fill in the blank. What's so fab about this human life, is there's so many exterior things that we get to experience, like, the senses, the five senses, like, ooh, maybe really tasting a delicious meal, or like I said, listening to that beautiful symphony, or touching, or textures, or like, wow, how beautiful is that? Like, that is the beauty of life. Also, that can bring pain, and suffering. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another time. But for the most part, that's the beauty. But just a reminder, we can find the joy in the simplest moments. I went on a call the other day, and one of my pleasure groups, and we were laughing, right? Because we were talking about, like, often when we focus a life full of pleasure and magic, it's like more, and it could force you outside of your body, like the best restaurants, the most amazing shows, the travel, which fuck yeah, sign me up. Like, we love those things. Let's have yes, please, thank you. Like, I want fabulousness, yes. But often when we get into that mode of like the creating and the fabulousness and shiny and sparkly and hot, we often can forget that feeling good is, corny, but is just a breath away. That's so corny, but it's true. It is just a breath away. It is just a touch away. It's just a song away. And so in our, in my group, we were laughing that, like, yes, we love the things. We want to travel to France. And, like I said, for me, my version of pleasure, it's all the different things, right? But who doesn't love Uncle Giuseppe's? I want to eat my mozzarella. I want to eat my mozzarella. I want to have my delicious 7 fishes, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't want that? Because that's the beauty and that's the juice of life. And often because of that, we forget, or not because of that, but we just forget it could be a breath. And like I said, in my group, we laugh that it's like, fuck, like, we make it so much harder. Like, we want it to be like all ritzy, and that's fabulous. And there's a place for that. But like, it is accessible even at the DMV. It is accessible even when you're in the depths of hell to reconnect to yourself feeling good. It's possible to hold both. Like, okay, I can hold myself. I'm in deep devastation and I can hold myself, right? Like, I can hold myself. I can be with myself, making something up. I'm at the movies and I feel disconnected to pleasure. I'm at dinner and I still feel disconnected. Can I take a deep breath? Maybe put a hand over my heart or over my skin and like, or like, maybe I need a little something more. Maybe I need one song to just like get back into my sensuality, get back into the groove. But what the purpose of this is, it is accessible. It doesn't have to be flashy, even though we love that. That's hot. There's a place for that. We can access it at any time. And if you're here and there's something in this conversation that's speaking to you, sorry, I coughed at you, or cleared my throat at you, it means that, you're someone that wants to fight for that life and advocate for that. And like I said before, it takes the intention of living this way. So my invitation for you is, what is your intention the next few beats? Is it, I want to prioritize my peace more. I want to prioritize that like cackle joy or whatever, everything means different. I want to prioritize goodness. And my invitation is, okay, how do we do that daily? Like, how do we microdose that? How do we gently let that into our field? Like, how do we gently let that penetrate us? How do we make space for it? Is where I would start and where I would begin. And then allowing it and being with it to evolve. Here's the thing too, is often, and in this context too, it's a podcast, right? So it's like we're in our heads, we're talking. But for me, I always like talked, or not, I often talked around pleasure. I talked around joy. Not always, right? But like sometimes when I wasn't in it, I would talk around it. And it's to be lived. So my invitation again is, can you make space for it? Like, can you make space for it to be a relationship of what does it need? What does my body need? How can I let goodness in? What does that look like? Maybe this flavor today is peace. Maybe tomorrow it's, orgasmic pleasure, like, I don't know, like maybe it's laugh out loud, kicking your feet, you're cackling, and maybe it's something delicious. Like, but it's a relationship worth fighting for. And we deserve that. We deserve to feel good. We deserve to feel peace and radiance and joy and cackle and all the flavors. So, if anything in this conversation resonated, if you are someone that's like, I want to get my sparkle back, or I like the aliveness, or something resonated in this, you know where to find me. Everything's in the show notes, but follow me at WeTheLight_LLC. I have a few more things to say before we wrap, but follow me there or shoot me a line, an email at info@wethelight.org. If something sparked, you know the deal. I always give away just a few consultations a month for people that really feel aligned, that want to chat about working one-to-one together. It's a fabulous opportunity. It's really badass and life-changing. So if that's something that's like, oh, that's tickling my fancy, let's hop on a call. It's literally no strings attached. You get a sense of my work. You see what logistically it looks like, and we talk. If that's not an option, obviously with the podcast, I have a free ebook. And you can get on the newsletter or the blog, which, is some juicy tidbits, and then also offerings that may be more appropriate, right? Like maybe like a group or a class or this or that. But I would love to be in your world. Like we talked about before, this work is so beautiful because it's accessible to us anytime. But it really, really is over the top when we're held in community, when we are, with people that cheer us on and help us fight for a magical life. And that's what I'm here for. So be sure to get in my field. I want to hold you. I want to support you. If that is, getting super personal, like I said, on that one-to-one call, or if it's like, I don't really want to talk to you, but like, I'll follow you from afar, but like, I'm here. So in whatever way you want to be held or seen, I got you. It's so funny. There's so much more that I could say. We kind of went on a tangent, but I think for me, the cliff notes of this episode, to wrap it up, is holding ourselves. How do we hold ourselves to feel good? How do we do that microdosing? How do we create that safety? How do we prioritize it, right? It's a relationship. And honestly, this is always peppered into my work, but the importance of aliveness and that we deserve to live out loud. We deserve to live out loud. Like I said, next time I'm going to be talking a little bit more about death, grief, shedding, and not like, it's going to be a good episode because I think it's going to be very connected to the aliveness and the radiance that I know we're all here and we're all craving. So again, I can go on, but let's end this here for today. I hope, and feel free. It's not like I'm, away in the sky. Like I'm here, a human person. So shoot me an email, shoot me a DM. Let me know how you are starting to microdose or gently take in that like spoonful of sugar, makes the medicine go down. Like that spoonful, we're just taking a tablespoon. We don't need to do the whole thing of sugar. Like how are you slowly going to start to interject more pleasure, more joy, more peace? Like what is that journey for you? If you're like, Erica, I know I want to, but what the fuck does that mean? How does that logistically work? I'm here. So if you're like, help with the logistics. So what do I do? What does that look like? I need structure. I got you. Or if you want to be seen and witness in it, I got you. If you're triggered, I got you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm here. Feel free to shoot me a line. Tell me how you're doing. But the intention is, how can we just slowly open the door little by little to make it feel safe to feel good, make it safe to feel juice and abundance and fabulousness? How can we slowly start to really allow goodness and radiance and love and peace back into our lives in a new fabulous way? Because we deserve it, because we're hot. I love you. I hope you go open lots of doors to your peace, your freedom. And when you do that, you know the deal. You're opening that peace, that freedom, that love, that self-love, and that goodness for others. So when you open that door for yourself, you open it for others. So go out, be hot, so you can be hot for yourself and others. Okay, you're the best. Love ya. Go microdose that pleasure or that joy or that peace. Do it up. Bye. Thank you, seriously thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.